Hello, everyone. Gilbert here. Welcome to Red Dragon Model Works. Um, I'd like to discuss a few things with you guys today, if you're interested. Um, I get a lot of questions regarding airbrushes. Um, I get a lot of messages asking me which airbrush um, is the best, which airbrush is best for the money, and or you know which airbrush should somebody buy, or they're thinking about buying an airbrush. They've never used one before, and which one would be the best airbrush to get. Now, myself and my brothers at the Styrene Syndicate, right here, the Styrene Syndicate, we answer this question a lot. I know Steve gets it a lot. I believe Wayne does. And we've discussed this many times in our weekly show. But recently, about 2 days ago, I received two PMs from someone telling me that belongs to a couple of forums. And in one of those forums, they're pushing the Infinity, the Harder and Steenbeck line, pretty hard. Every time someone says, I'd like to get an airbrush, which one should I buy? This is the one that they keep pushing. There's another forum, another guy says the same thing about the Iwatas. That's the airbrush that he keeps hearing that he has to buy. Um, and they asked me, what do I think? Well, before I answer that question, I'd like to make a statement. This is in no way an attack on anyone. This is no way telling you that what they're telling you in those forums is right or wrong. They have their opinion and they're entitled to it. I am no expert at airbrushing. I'll give you a little background on me in a second here, and I know that there are some that will see this as an attack or I'm tweaking someone's nose. It's not. I'm asked a question and I'm going to answer the question that was posed to me in the best way I can. So if it rubs people the wrong way, so be it. But I'll be as honest and as forthcoming as I can. Back in about '83, my wife and I, we were just married, and I used to do a lot of hairbrush work, oil paints. I did a lot of canvas work. I did a lot of work on murals, on walls for people and for the city of Chicago. Um, I did a lot of tattoo work, pencil work, you name it. In high school, I was introduced to the Badger 150. At the time, I wasn't interested in airbrushing as I was trying to learn how to use a paintbrush. So it just went right over my head and I never pursued it. But after I got married, I was 21 years old, and my wife watched me painting something, and we had gone to the store and we saw these guys doing t-shirt work, and she says, you can do that. And I thought, yeah, sure I can. I don't have an airbrush. And at the time, my wife and I mean, we were struggling, man. We had a one-bedroom apartment. We had nothing, man. I mean, dirt poor. But she somehow, uh, the months preceding that, she had managed to put away a few dollars and surprised me when she went out and bought this airbrush here. I'm sorry about that. Someone came to my door. Okay, where was I? So she had scraped together a few dollars, and there was an Ace Hardware down the street from us, and they used to sell airbrush equipment and whatever. So she picked this up for me. Now back in 1981, 80, I'm sorry, 82, 83, this was pretty expensive. And I didn't know anything about it, and I don't think, I've never looked into it, but I don't think they had gravity feeds at the time, other than the big, handheld jobs. But as far as an airbrush, this at the time was the cat's ass, the Badger 150. So she bought this for me, and I sat down, man, and just for about a month. You know, went and bought some cheap paint, watered it down. I learned how to do that real quick, and just, you know, over and over and over again to get the feel of the airbrush in my hand. Then I started selling T-shirts and paintings and stuff, and did pretty well. It helped pay the bills. And then I was approached to see if I can put some of my artwork on some of the lowriders and stuff. And I said, sure. So this is the airbrush I used at the time. Was this airbrush here? I needed another airbrush, so I didn't have to quit, you know, keep pulling the bottle out and rinsing it out and all that. So my wife picked this one up for me. Same place. I got this one, I think it was an 84 was this one. Same thing, Badger 150. And they served me well. And then I started doing motorcycle tanks, and I needed something that could give me a very fine line. Not that these couldn't, but I just needed something else so I could, you know, set these up and then have another one just for the fine lines. And that's where this one came in. It's the Badger 200. This one here. So for years, that's what I used. And then I caught wind of this guy about, I think it was 86, 87, the Posh H. And this is the very same one. The only difference is I changed the handle. This is the very same one that I've had since then. And I started using this also. Now, these 4 airbrushes were the ones that I used for well over 30 years. I've left the hobby or airbrushing, came back, left, came back, and I walked away from it about 1998, 99, and I was away from it for about 10 years. But when I picked up the hobby 2 years ago, this is what I was using, were these. And, you know, I started looking into a gravity feed. So I picked up a Badger, or I'm sorry, not Wide, a Micron. I got it at a good sale. It was about $400. I had it for about a month, and my grandson broke it. And that's my fault because he wanted to airbrush, my older grandson. He wanted to airbrush. He took it, shoved it into a piece of paper, and just went like this with it, thinking it was a pen, and just ruined the front of it. So I've got a Micron that is worthless right now. But I picked this one up. It's the Iwata HPC Plus. Gravity fed. It's got a 0.3 needle in there. Internal mix. These are internal mix also. This is an external mix. The Posh H, because it doesn't come in here. It atomizes and mixes the paint, the air and the paint at the tip here. So I started using this a lot. Still use these. I use these, you know, a lot. But I started learning how to use this. And with me, as I've done with these, I modify everything. I take the springs out. I put a stiffer spring in there. I shorten it, stiffer spring, taller triggers, and then I put a pad at the top to give it even more. Because with the Iwatas, if you got big hands, right there, see that? And sometimes I'm what they call a knuckle dragger. I do this when I airbrush, or I do this, and my thumb is forever hitting the cup. So I want it higher than the cup. Not only that, the higher trigger gives you more sensitivity as you pull back. It's just physics. If it's shorter, it's got more, it has to move further back in order for it to engage. If it's taller, it's just a little bit less. So I picked this one up. And I've since picked up a Revolution and an Evolution, Iwata. I had a Neo, and I had a Grex, and both of those I got rid of. Pick this one up here because this is an Iwata HPTH. It's got a 0.5 needle in there, the MAC check valve. And I can do with this airbrush, I can do what I can do with all of these with this airbrush. It's got a 0.5 needle in there. My wife ended up buying this one for me, the Infinity, Harder and Steenbeck 2-in-1 Infinity. Beautiful airbrush. Very expensive. Close to $400 she paid for this at the time. I think it's a little cheaper than that, but it still hasn't come down that much. But you can find it on sale at certain places. Here in the States, this airbrush goes for about $380, I believe, almost $400. This airbrush right here. Beautiful airbrush. I won't get into the particulars of it, but just to say that it's a great airbrush, but it's an expensive airbrush. So now we'll get to that's why I use these for various things. This one I use for primers. I use this for clears. I use this for futures. I don't use this as much now to do detail work as I used to, but it still gets use. The same with my 150s. I use these all the time. Sometimes I use them for detail work when I just feel like playing with it. You know, I always go back to it. But this is mostly done for like future, all clads, metallics. That's what I use these for, the 150s. This 200, I use it a lot for detail work when I'm doing stuff like this. When I do figures, I'll use something like this. And I'll get into these because that goes back to this. I also use this here, the Harder and Steenbeck. This has got a 1.5 needle in there. And if I just want a little bit of paint, these caps come off, and I can drop a few drops of paint in there, and just no problem. Bada bing, bada boom, Bob's your uncle. It's over and done with. But seeing that I've gotten into figures a lot, I've acquired these. Now this is the Badger Chrome. Excellent airbrush. Relatively, it's cheaper than the Harder and Steenbeck. It's cheaper than the Iwata HP CS. It might be cheaper than the Revolution. I'm not sure. But it's a damn good airbrush. I've been using this for about 2 months exclusively, and I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I wish I would have started using one of these sooner. I wouldn't have bought these two airbrushes right here. This does the work of all of them. Same thing with the Badger Soltaire 2020. This airbrush does exactly what that airbrush right there does, at a third of the price. Had I known that, stupid me, that airbrush right there wouldn't have been purchased. I would have saved that money for models, and this airbrush suffices. So, to get to the question, I've been asked, which one do you use? You see here, I use them all. Which one would I recommend? Well, if you're getting into the hobby and you've never used an airbrush, I would suggest you get a single action gravity fed airbrush. Something like this. This airbrush you can find anywhere from $40 to $80 online right now. I believe I bought one that I put away for my grandson because he loves to play with it. But I picked one. I've got 3 of them. I gave one to Fast Jimmy. I have this one. And the brand new one I got put away. This is, again, over 30 years old. I found this, I believe, a Chicago Airbrush at the time. They were running a sale, and I got it for about 45 bucks. The one that I put away. So you can get anywhere from $40 to $80. I've seen this one, the 200. You can get it anywhere from, I've seen them on eBay for 20 bucks, man, because people just don't use them anymore. You know, they buy them and then they don't know how to use it. And they throw it away or they put it off to the side and then they're trying to dump them. I've seen them for 20 bucks. I have parts of one that I got from Freddie that was just, it was all corroded on the inside. So I got parts of it, and one day I'll send it in to get it fixed. But this is a great airbrush, guys. So I would recommend a single action, either an external mix or an internal mix. But this is what I would recommend if you're just starting out with the hobby. Reason being, learn how to use it. It teaches you how to hold it, teaches you how to use the pressures on it, what pressure to push down. You know, it gives you the basics. Then, if you want to upgrade to a double action, well, again, I would still hold on to these because these are always going to use these two. But I would suggest if you don't want to spend a lot of money, you got one of two things. I always keep this one here. I save them because you can buy the big bottles, and you can put a big bottle in here, and you do a lot of. It holds a lot of paint, so you can push a lot of paint out. So I would get a siphon feed double action, and I recommend you can get the Patriot or this one. This is the Badger 150. You can find this under $100, guys. Beautiful airbrush. The parts are relatively cheaply to get. You know, they're readily available. It's a well-made airbrush. It'll last you a lifetime if you take care of it. So I would recommend this one here also. Okay, say you don't want a gravity-fed airbrush. Okay, you can get a Neo, an Iwata Neo, but you got to remember the Iwata Neo is not made by Iwata, it's made for Iwata. So yes, it has the Iwata name on there, but it doesn't have the same Iwata quality as say this one will. So if you're looking for a gravity-fed airbrush, you know, and it has to be, say you want an Iwata, you can go the Neo route, or you can pick up the Eclipse. You can get these relatively cheap, guys. The Eclipse. You can get the Revolution. Or if you want to, you know, you feel frisky and you want to bump up, you go with the HPCH Plus. This one here. You can get it either with the Mac valve here or without the Mac valve. These here will run you though. This one will run you over 200 bucks. I believe you can still find it on eBay for a little cheaper than that directly from Japan. And the same with these. You can get them for about $1.50 on, maybe even lower on eBay. The direct, Japan Direct is the name of them. And you can get them directly from them. Why spend the $200-300 they're asking for here when you can go right to the source and buy them? You know, this one here. Or, I recommend this airbrush, the Badger Chrome. Again, this airbrush surprised me. The quality is beautiful. It's a great airbrush. It's solidly made. I love the large trigger on it. You got that big pad on it. I love the way it works. You can do fine detail work with this. You can change the nozzles. It's relatively easy to keep clean. That nozzle inside, it's a press fit nozzle, comes out. It's not like the Iwatas here where you have to screw that nozzle in. And it's a very good airbrush, guys. An exceptional airbrush. You can get this. Well, I don't know. I paid. Well, put it this way. I got these for a steal at Adepticon, and I bought a bunch of them for the guys. But you can also get these right now here. If you go to webairbrush.com, right here, and you use my code Red Dragon Monoworks, you can save 40% off on this purchase. Or you can go find it cheaper anywhere else. It doesn't matter. But this is a great airbrush, guys. I recommend this airbrush wholeheartedly. If you want to do detail work, this airbrush, the Sotar 2020. Phenomenal airbrush. Phenomenal. Again, it's a fine detail airbrush though. So remember what you're getting. You're not going to spray base coats with this. You can if you change everything. But that's not what this airbrush is made for. This airbrush is made for fine detail work. It's made for you getting in there. You're doing fine detail. It's made to get into all these little spots. This is not made to push a lot of paint. It's made for thin down detail work. Or you can go out and buy this. This is the Infinity Harder and Steenbeck 201. This airbrush is going to run you close to $400. Beautiful airbrush. Nothing wrong with it. Exceptional airbrush, but it's expensive. And the parts here in the States at least will cost you big money. That nozzle alone right there is $60 for the nozzle inside with the needle. The needle and the nozzle is $60 for this. So, and that's the needle is usually what you're going to ruin. The needle and the nozzle combination for these things are $60. That cap alone, right there. This little cap right here cost me $12 for that little stupid little cap. So, anyway, which one is the best one? This, don't let the fanboys tell you that you got to buy this airbrush, because you don't. It's a great airbrush. Maybe somewhere down the line, if you want to pick up a good detail airbrush, this would be the airbrush to get. It's a good one. Same thing with the Iwata HPC Plus. Exceptional airbrush. I'm a big fan of Iwata. I love them, as you can see. But do you absolutely need that airbrush? No. Start out, guys, with something a little bit more robust, in case, you know, and cheaper. Some of the lower range, mid-range Iwatas, a Siphon Feed 150, Patriot one, or the Patriot or the 150, or you can pick up a Chrome or a bad, you know. This is a great airbrush, guys. This one right here. But you got to learn how to use it. This is, again, it's got a 0.5 needle in there. A big difference from a 0.3. But in the right hands, you can do the same work with this airbrush as I can do with that one right there. And I've shown people on Hangouts. You know, they tell me I can't, and I've shown them. Yes, I can. I can get the same quality of line with this airbrush. Not as super fine, but almost as I can with that harder Steenbeck. Which is the best airbrush? Is it the Infinity? Hell no. This is not the best airbrush on the market. Neither is the Iwata. Neither is the Chrome. The best airbrush that you can get, my friends, is the one in your hand. The one you're using. I know people like Chris and Alex, they use the cheaper Vedas and they get exceptional results. And they don't pay a fraction of what these cost. Same thing with that brother over at Awakened Realms. He does some fantastic figure painting. What does he use? He uses a cheap airbrush. Either it's a Veda or whatever's laying on the table. They look like they've been run over by a car. He picks them up, makes sure that they can spray, and he gets some amazing work. So the best airbrush money can buy is the one that's in your hand. Remember, it still takes skill, guys. It still takes skill. You can get amazing results with this airbrush and with this one. The only difference is the person using it. You also got to remember the part of the country you live in or the world. Humidity, pressure, how your compressor is kicking out, the line, if you got any air leaks in it, your PSIs. You got to take all that into account. But I guarantee you, my friends, that you can get the same quality of line or airbrushes with this airbrush. You can find it relatively cheap as you can with that one. So don't let anybody try to tell you that you have to buy an Infinity 2-in-1 or a Iwata, higher end Iwata, because you don't. You don't. So that's what I use. If you ask me what my opinion is, I would tell you, get a single action airbrush, learn how to use it, work up to either a siphon feed double action, or if you want, just go straight to these. Bada bing, bada boom. So that's my answer. It's a long answer. I understand that, but that's what it is, guys. If you're looking for a badger, you can go right here. Airbrush.com. You can use this Red Dragon ModelWorks or Red Dragon. You can use that code and you get 40% off. Use Red Dragon, it'll give you 40% off. I hope this was informative, guys. I mean, I didn't break them all down. And if you'd like, I can do that later on and show you the differences on the inside, because there really isn't. They're all basically the same, just different tolerances. I just wanted to show you what I had on my bench, what I use, why I use them, and which one I consider the best. To me, they're all the best airbrush. You guys have a good one. Stay safe. Be kind to your children. Enjoy your families. I hope the rest of the week goes well for you. Leave the drama to the queens and brothers. Paint a model. It's Red Dragon saying peace. Ciao.